once you have AutoCAD installed and you open it up for the first time, this is pretty much the interface that you're going to see. It's their start screen. And in the middle here is recent documents that you have opened. So this is an easy way, if you've been working on a project, you can easily get back to those projects by just clicking on one of these links over here. Or you can use this Get Started button to start a new drawing. And as we progress, you'll see that this is not the way that we'll normally start a new drawing. I have another way that involves templates, but for now, or for the next week or so, you can just start AutoCAD by just clicking on Start Drawing, and a brand new AutoCAD drawing will start up for you. And the first thing you'll notice is that there is a tab for that new drawing, drawing one. Here's the start screen. You can go back to it, and then you're drawing one. And yes, you can have 5, 6, 7, 8 drawings open all at the same time if you want, and it'll just keep adding a tab, and you can just keep clicking along on those tabs until you get so you can work on multiple projects, copy stuff from one drawing and paste in another drawing, etc. Okay. So up in the upper left-hand corner, there is a red A for AutoCAD, like a scarlet letter. And when I click on it, recent drawings appear here. So this is another way that I can get into another project that I'm working on and create a new drawing, open, save. Save as is important, and print over here, or printing or plotting you can do from here. So that is from this red A here. And then to the right of it is a quick access toolbar, and this is again new and open, save as, print is here, batch plot, print preview. And you can, there's a little down arrow here, you can add some other stuff to it if you want. So this is a quick access toolbar. This is always here for you in order to be able to get to stuff relatively easily. Below it is the ribbon. And AutoCAD has a lot of commands on it, and it has arranged them in tabs here. These are tabs here: Home, Insert, Annotate. And when I click on each one of these, it changes the ribbon to commands that are specific to that topic. So if I want to do annotation, annotating is adding notes or adding dimensions to your drawing. I'll click on the annotate and go from there. There's express tools down here, and we will use a couple of those express tools in this class. And the home button is right here with the basic commands on here. And the ribbon is divided into little palettes. There's the draw palette here, and a modify, and a quick annotation palette, layers, etc., etc. And if I click on each one of these, on the draw palette here, there's a little down button here. I click down here, there are additional commands that I can choose from that draw palette. And when I click off of it, it collapses. If I want to pin that open and keep it open, just get on there, there is a little pin right here, and I can click on it, and then that draw tab, that palette will stay open. If I unclick on it, that will collapse again. So those are the basic commands on the ribbon. This area here is the drawing interface, and obviously we will be using this a lot. Directly to the bottom is the command line area, and this is where you will type commands, and AutoCAD will give you messages as to what to do if you have selected a command. It will sort of give you some shorthand instructions on how to use that command correctly. And then let's see, and then down over here in the right, these are status bar toggles. And we will be talking a lot about these as we move on. These are important and definitely will be a part of what we're doing. So that is the basic interface. If I want to, let's say, draw a line, there's what I can do is I can just go up to my ribbon here and go over to the line command here. And there's actually two ways that I can draw a line. I can click on the line button here, or I can use a shortcut. I can type, L, and when I type L or line, but as soon as I start typing, AutoCAD comes up with suggestions of what I might want to do. And you'll notice that right here, line is the top one because that's probably the most common command. And if it's not, I can scroll down and just look at all the L command. This is just L. So so I can use the shortcut. I can just type L if I want, or I can click on the button up here. I'm just going to click on the button up here, the line tool. And by the way, notice that when I hover over it, it sort of gives me a little bit of information about that command. So I'm just going to click on the line tool. And the first thing you may notice is that down here in my command prompt here, it says that I am in the line command. It says line in bold here, and it's giving me some instructions. It's telling me to specify the first point of the line. So I'm just going to click here. I'm just going to left click. And then if you'll notice down at the bottom here, it says specify the next point. So I will click the next point, and there I have drawn my first line. And then it says specify the next point, and I can just keep going and typing line after line after line. And it's just going to keep going and for forever until I end the command. And there's a couple ways that I can end the command. The first is just hit the enter key. As soon as I hit enter, it ends the command. The other way is to hit the space bar. And that also will end the command. So enter or space bar. I should mention that I'm right-handed, so my mouse is in my right hand, and I am using a 3-button mouse. That is, I've got a left button and a right button, and then I have a scroll wheel in the middle that I can also press and use that as a button. That is the mouse that AutoCAD prefers that you use, and that's the mouse that I am going to be using. If you don't have that kind of a mouse, I would highly recommend splurging and spending the $19.95 for a new mouse and getting a 3-button mouse. It really will be helpful to you. The other thing that I do is I generally have my left hand kind of hovering or in the area of the keyboard so that I can type quick shortcut commands like L for line, or I can hit the enter key or the spacebar key or the escape key to get out of a command. So I'm going to get back into the line command, and this time I'm going to hit the type L and enter. And now you'll notice back down here in my command line here, I'm back in the line command. And again, I can specify a point and draw lines. And then when I'm done, this time, what I'll do is I'll hit the spacebar key and I'm out of the command. Now, AutoCAD remembers the last command that you've been using. So if I hit the spacebar key again, you'll notice that, and I'm hitting it so you can hear it. You'll notice that in my command line, I'm back in the line command. And I didn't type L and I didn't hit the line button. I just AutoCAD remembered that I'm in the line command. So the spacebar key sort of toggles your last command that you've been using. Also, I should mention that in the command line here, there is a little up button. If I click on it, AutoCAD will show you all of the stuff that you've been doing I think you can scroll back all the way to the beginning of your session. So, you know, when I typed line the first time, it asked me for the first point, and then the next point, and the next point, and the next point, and the next point. So let me just do one more thing here. I'll just put in a circle here. So I'll go over to my ribbon here. I'll click on circle, and you'll notice down here, I'm now in the circle command, and AutoCAD is asking me to specify the center point of the circle. So I'll just click here, and I'll draw a circle. I'm just you'll notice down here, AutoCAD is saying specify the radius of the circle. So I'm just going to specify a random radius here and click on it. So let me talk a little bit about navigating in AutoCAD. And this is where that that mouse wheel on your mouse comes in handy. To zoom in AutoCAD, there's a lot of ways to zoom, but the most common way to zoom is using your mouse wheel. I can just scroll in and zoom, and scroll out to zoom out. If I want to scroll over in this area, zoom in this area, I'm just going to move my cursor or my crosshairs. These are called crosshairs or cursor. I'm going to move my crosshairs into the area that I want, or it's in the general vicinity of the area that I want to zoom, and then roll my mouse. And I'll zoom in that area. So if I want to zoom over here, so wherever I move my mouse, I'll generally move my, I'll zoom in that area. The other thing that is very handy in AutoCAD is panning. And I do that by pressing down on my mouse wheel, and I'm holding as I'm pressing down and holding, and you'll notice that my cursor is turned into a little hand, a little fist, and I can go left and right, and it moves my whole drawing. It's not moving my drawing, but it's moving the view of my drawing left and right. So I can zoom, and then I can pan by holding my mouse wheel down and zooming that way. If I want to select some of these objects here, what I can do is, you'll notice that as I hover over the object, it kind of highlights and is telling me, I'm not pressing my mouse button or anything, I'm just moving my mouse over it. And if I click on it, you'll notice that AutoCAD highlights that object. It sort of changes the color of it to a sort of a blue, and it puts some boxes on the left and the right and the middle of the object. Those boxes are called grips, and those are very, very handy for us to use in AutoCAD. And again, we will be using grips a lot in as we progress. So I can just go along and I can select, objects that I'd like to do something with. Maybe I want to move them, or maybe I want to erase them, or rotate them, or do lots of stuff with them. And that is the first way that you can select an object. If I want to deselect the objects, I just hit the escape key. When I hit the escape key, those objects are deselected. So that is one way that I can select objects. Now, there is another way that I can select objects, and that is using a window. I'm just going to move my cursor. I want to select this circle here, and I'm going to move my cursor up here to the upper left here, and I'm just going to left click and release. And you notice that my cursor changed a little bit to a little square with a green dot in it. And as I move my mouse, it is creating a blue square or blue rectangle here. And as soon as I enclose that object in the square, notice the object is not enclosed in the square, but as soon as the object is fully in the square, the object is highlighted. And AutoCAD is telling me that it is going to select that object. And if I keep going, you'll notice that it also selected that vertical line down at the bottom there. And then when I left click again, AutoCAD officially has selected those objects. So I'm going to hit escape here. So again, in order to select multiple objects easily and quickly, I could go in and I could select this and this and this and this and this, you know, and then do something with them. But if I want to select those objects a little faster, I can just go up, upper left or lower left. I'll just left click and release, and then start dragging and getting a blue rectangle, and anything that is fully enclosed within that rectangle will be selected. And then I'll left click again, and those objects are now selected. Now, there is another way. What if I do the same thing, but from the right side? So I'm going to left click and release. And now you'll notice that I am drawing a green rectangle, not blue, but green. This is called a crossing rectangle. The blue one is a window rectangle. The green one is a crossing rectangle. And anything that crosses into that rectangle will be selected. Now note, watch the circle as I cross into it. You'll notice that the full circle is not inside the box. Just a part of that circle is inside the box, but AutoCAD is selecting it. So with the crossing, I don't need to select all, I don't need to have all of the object inside my selection box, only a part of it. So watch the two lines down at the bottom here as I go toward it. Boom, AutoCAD has selected both of those lines because they are in the crossing box. And if I moved over to the left, it has selected that vertical line. It's fully within the box, but it also selected the horizontal line because it crosses into the box. And then if I left click again, you'll notice that all of those lines are selected. So that's a handy thing to have too when you're selecting something and you have a lot of objects on your screen and you don't want to, you know, drag that window. Say you want to select an entire wall or something, and the wall is really long and you don't want to be able to draw that window around the whole wall. You can just use a crossing selection box and just select that way. So again, from the left is a window selection box, and objects need to be fully inside the window to be selected. Or from the right, anything that crosses into that green box, that green crossing box, crossing selection window, is selected. Now there is a third way, and that is using a lasso. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click, and this time I'm holding down on my left mouse button, and it is creating sort of a free-form shape that I can go around and select objects that way if I want. And this is, I'm holding my left mouse button down in order to get this lasso. And then when I release, those objects that crossed over the lasso have been selected. And similarly, if I, so the lasso, I'm holding down my left mouse button in order to create the lasso. The window, I left click and release and create the window, and objects that are fully within that window will be selected. Or if I go in the green direction to the left, move this way, anything that crosses that window will be selected. So that is selecting objects. So if I want to select all of my objects and delete them, what I can do is I can hit my delete key, or I can go up here. There's a little command here called the erase command, and those objects will be erased. If I want to undo I can hit Control Z, Z as in zebra, or up here at the top in my quick access buttons here, there is a left button and I can undo that way and brings them back. I'm just looking at to make sure that I have all of the things that I wanted to talk about. Oh, there is one other thing, and that is a dynamic input. So I'm going to erase all of these objects. And again, I can choose the erase button here, or I can type E and enter, or E and spacebar, and I will be in the erase command. How do I know that? Down here on my command line, it says erase, and it's telling me what to do. Select objects. These are the objects to erase. And you'll notice that my crosshairs have been replaced with a little square, which is called a pick box. And I can just sort of select objects that I want to erase. And then when I'm done selecting objects, I'll just hit enter or space, the space bar, and then AutoCAD will erase those objects that I just selected. So if I want to erase the rest of these objects, I can again type E, enter, and you'll notice I'm back in the pick box. I am in the erase command, and it's asking me to select objects. And if I want to select all of them, I'll just draw a big window around all of them and hit enter. I've got a clean slate. All right. Another thing that AutoCAD will do is dynamic input. And I have my dynamic input right now set off. When you start AutoCAD, yours may actually be turned on. And I'm going to just go into the line command here. And I'm going to start to draw a line. And I'm going to turn my dynamic input on. And I toggle dynamic input on and off with the F12 key. So as soon as I hit F12, you'll notice that next to my cursor, there are some instructions there. And it says specify the next point, just like it does down here in the command line. And then you'll notice there is a box to the right of it with some numbers on it. And that is the distance that I want and the angle that AutoCAD is going to be drawing that line on. So you may want to have dynamic input on or off. I generally have it off, particularly when I have a drawing that has a lot of things on it. But we'll be using it both ways. But I just wanted to show you dynamic input for now. And again, you toggle that on and off with the F12 key, or you can come down here and right here, there is a little button that says dynamic input, and I can turn my dynamic input on and off with this button down here in this menu down here. So if I want if I want to draw a line that's exactly 6 units long, I can just type 6, and you'll notice that 6 is being input in that little box next to right here. And then I'll just hit enter. And there is a line that is exactly 6 units long. If I want another line that is 10 units long, I'll just type 10 and enter. And now that line, it's gone off my screen, so that's not a problem. I can just roll my mouse wheel to zoom out to be able to see my whole drawing. And you'll notice that while I'm in the command, I can zoom in and out. So that, and again, I'm using my mouse wheel to zoom in and out. So it's easily done while you're in a command. You don't have to be outside of a command to do it. And when I'm done drawing my line, I can just hit enter, and I'm outside of it. I'm done with the line command. But we don't want to draw in generic units. We want to draw in feet and inches because when we're doing architectural drawings or when you're designing a custom table or whatever, you're going to want to convey information in feet and inches. So let me just erase this stuff. I'll just click on the erase button, and this time I'll just use crossing to get rid of them, and then hit enter, or my space bar in this case, and I got rid of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type units, the word units. And you'll notice that as soon as I start typing units, AutoCAD is trying to anticipate what I want to do. So I'm going to type UNITS, there's units, and I'll hit enter. And I get a dialog box that comes up, and that is the drawing units. And right now, by default, AutoCAD's units are decimal. We don't want that. We want architectural. We want to be working in feet and inches. So I'm going to select architectural. And now AutoCAD is asking for precision. So precision. In reality, we can get really, really, really precise. 1/256th of an inch. I can't even say it. That is extremely precise in AutoCAD. So we can get really, really, really detailed drawings in AutoCAD. But the reality of it is that we are sort of at the mercy of, our wonderful program. Even though it can get really, really detailed, we're really at the mercy of the craftsmen and the workforce that is actually building our space, right? If we're adding a door to putting a door in a wall to get into another room, or we're adding a room, or we're creating, a table, and I say, I want that table to be 4 feet long, 4 feet 1 3/256 of an inch, the craftsman's going to laugh at me, because the reality is that a saw, the saw has thickness, right? So he may tick off 4 feet 1 356 of an inch, but the reality is that saw is going to be wider than the tick mark, and some of that is going to be cut off. So in reality, the closest we can ever get is the closest a craftsman can get. And that sometimes it's a 1/16 of an inch. Sometimes you can get a craftsman to sort of file off or sand off to the nearest 1/16 of an inch. But in reality, the closest we can really get is 1/8 of an inch. So I think in this class, I'm going to have us set our precision to 1/8 of an inch. It's a realistic precision, and in my office, we never do anything over more exact than 1/8 of an inch. So our drawing units will be architectural, and our precision will be 1/8 of an inch. And then we'll just hit OK.
Paul?
Yes.
When you make those sort of changes and the ones that are on the sheet of like the different settings, do those stay every time you open a new document, or is this like a template you have to save then after you make those changes?
Yeah, that's a good question. As far as like units are concerned, AutoCAD starts fresh every single time. It does not know, it assumes that you're going to be at decimal units. So starting next week, we'll talk about templates and setting up a template so that every time we start AutoCAD, we don't have to type units, and there's all kinds of things that we can set in AutoCAD to customize it in a way that we only need to do once, and then we never have to do it again if we use that template. As far as the settings that are concerned down here in the lower right, when I set these settings, they will stay the same from drawing to drawing. Let's just, here, I'm just going to create a new drawing right here. I can easily create a new drawing here. Yeah, so in my new setting, in my new drawing, it kept these settings exactly the way that I had them in the previous. So these settings will stay, so that this is more conducive to your workflow, how you're working, I may want to have dynamic input on, and the person sitting next to you may hate dynamic input and not want it on. So that's a preference that you can set and turn on and off at will, and will stay with you as you're working on your different drawings. All right. So so we set our units. So let's talk about drawing a line that is somewhat precise. So I'm going to click the line tool here, and you'll notice that I have dynamic input turned on for now. And I'm going to just select a point. AutoCAD is telling me to specify the first point down here. I'm just going to pick a point, and I can draw that point at any angle here. And you'll notice that as I am moving that my cursor off to the right, AutoCAD is anticipating what my length of that line will be. So if I want the line, let's just make it 1 foot long. I'm just going to go right here, and I'm just going to type 1, and then I'm going to use the apostrophe, the little foot symbol, 1 apostrophe, or 1 foot is what I'll call it. And then I'll just hit enter. And then I'll just, and now AutoCAD is assuming that I want to keep going, but for now I'm just going to hit enter again to end the command. So this is a line that is exactly 1 foot long. If I want to create a line that has some inches in it, well, first of all, I could create that line, that 1 foot line. I could just say 12 inches, or let's create a line that's 1 foot 1 inches long. I'll type 1 foot and then 1. I don't have to type the inch mark in AutoCAD. AutoCAD assumes that I'm typing in inches unless I use that foot mark, and that'll say, oh, okay, she wants to use feet. If I go back here, and again, that line that I want to draw is 1 foot 1 inch long. If I type 13, which is 12 inches, which is a foot plus 1 inch, and I hit enter, AutoCAD has drawn a line that's 1 foot 1 inch long. The other way to do it, of course, is, again, I'm back in the command, I'm left clicking, and then I can type 1 foot 1 and then enter, and I have a line that's 13 inches long, or 1 foot 1. So how do I know that that line is 1 foot 1 long? Sometimes we want to verify what we're drawing. And over in my ribbon here, the home ribbon, I want to make sure that that's selected. All the way off to the right, there is measure. And by default, it's set to, there are a number of different ways to measure stuff here, but I'm just going to do the quick measure right here. And you'll notice that my cursor is now changed to brown crosshairs. And as I move that cursor close to the object that I want, you'll notice that AutoCAD is signaling me, is telling me that that object is 1 foot 1 long. And if I go over to this one, that object is 1 long. And if I go to this one, that object is 1 foot long. So that is an easy way for me just to double check my my work as I'm moving along. And it's just, again, it's just the measure tool. I can just click on it, and then I'm not even pressing the left mouse button or anything. I'm just hovering over, I'm just moving over toward the object, and AutoCAD is sort of anticipating that I want information about this object that my crosshairs are near. And when I'm done measuring, I can just left click, or no, I can just hit the escape key to get back out of it. So the next thing that I want to talk about here are snaps, object snaps. If I want to, let's say, let me just get rid of these. if I want to draw a line here, and I'm just going to draw some random lines here. And I want this last line to end up at the starting point here. I want to create a triangle. What I can do is I can just move my cursor close to the end point. Now watch what happens. You'll see that there is a green little square that appears at the end point of that line. And I have a little clue from AutoCAD, a little message came up right next to the cursor there that says endpoint. That means if I left click, I'm just going to left click right now, AutoCAD has snapped to that endpoint of that line. Now, this is a really handy tool for us because, let me just get rid of that. Let's just say that I want to do, I'm gonna toggle it off for just a moment here. Let's say that I want to complete this triangle, right? And I'm going to draw a line, and I want to get, I'll zoom in here, and I want to get right at that endpoint there. And I want to get to this endpoint here. So did I get it? Well, let's just really zoom in. I didn't get it. I thought that I got it. And well, I certainly got it on the right side, right? No, actually I didn't. I didn't even get it there. So in AutoCAD, as I mentioned before, we're talking about precision. This is not acceptable, nor is this. I have to be right on the money. So if I want to have those snaps, if I want AutoCAD to snap to those endpoints, I need to enable OSNAP. OSNAP is short for Object Snap. And I access Object Snap right here. This little button right here, it turns Object Snap on and off. And another way to do it is with F3. If I hit the F3 key, you'll notice that my Object Snap is off, and I'm just going to hit F3, and my Object Snap is on. And you'll notice that also here in my command line, it said Object Snap on. If I click on my history here, you can see I turned my Object Snap on, then I turned it off, and now it's back on again. So now let's go into the line command. And I'm going to draw that line from that endpoint to that endpoint. I'm going to move my cursor close to it. Ah, there. AutoCAD is snapping to that endpoint, which is exactly what I want. I'll left click and then snap over to this endpoint. I'll left click again. And now I have that line. No matter how close I get, AutoCAD has snapped exactly to that endpoint. So OSNAP is a really, really handy tool, and it's something that we will use a lot. Let me show you some other OSNAPs. I'm going to get back into the line command, and I'll snap over here. There we go. And I can, if I come toward the middle of this line, you'll notice that AutoCAD is now put a little green triangle right at the midpoint of that line. And if I left click, AutoCAD has snapped to the midpoint of that line. If I want to snap to the midpoint of this line, there it is. That little green triangle is telling me that when I left click, AutoCAD's going to snap to the middle of that line. Now, another thing that I can do is there, I'm going to snap from the endpoint, and this time I'm going to come down, and it's not, if I want to go to the midpoint of the, remember this line goes from here to here, not from here to here. So if I come down here, you'll notice that now AutoCAD has a little L, and that's sort of the perpendicular symbol, not sort of, but that is the perpendicular symbol. So if I left click, AutoCAD is now drawing a line that is perpendicular to this line, absolutely perpendicular. So this angle right here is exactly 90 degrees. So why is that useful to us? Well, if we're Again, I'll use the example of drawing, creating a custom table. If you want that table to be square, you want your lines to be at right angles to each other. You want them to be perpendicular to each other. All right. The next thing that I want to show you is right over here, this little circle here with the two lines in it, and that is called polar tracking. Oh, by the way, let me just comment on one other thing. To the left of my O-snap button here, just to the left, there is a snapping reference lines. And if that snapping reference line button is turned on your computer, I would suggest turning it off. What it does is it creates a bunch of reference lines, and you'll notice like there is an X there where my cursor is, and it adds a bunch of more advanced functionality that in the end, particularly with new users, can be really, really confusing. So I would suggest that this button here always be turned off. And I think by default it is turned off, but if it is turned on, please do turn it off. All right, so I wanted to talk about polar tracking, and that is the circle button right here. And when I click on that, I have polar tracking started. And I'm just going to pan over a little bit, and then so I can draw in this area here. So again, I'm just going to draw a line. I'll just type L and enter, and I'll start my line here. And you'll notice the rubber band, I can go in any direction that I want. But when I go exactly horizontal, you'll notice that a green tracking line has appeared. And as I slide my cursor around on that tracking line, AutoCAD will draw that line exactly horizontal, exactly horizontal. So if I want a line that is, I don't know, 2 feet horizontal, I can just type 2 feet, enter, and that line, it went off my screen, so I'm just going to zoom out. That line is exactly 2 feet long, and it's absolutely horizontal. And when I go in the vertical direction, you'll notice that the tracking line, the green tracking line, is now tracking me vertically. I'm at 90 degrees. If you look over to the right there, there's a little 90 degree symbol. And I'm going exactly vertical as long as that tracking line is on. I can get off of it if I want by moving my cursor. But when I move 90 degrees, it snaps on and allows me to draw a line. You know, I'll just make this line 6 inches, 6, enter. It allows me to draw a line that is exactly vertical. So again, horizontal and vertical, I'm drawing my lines exactly horizontally and vertically with polar tracking on. But what if I want to draw a line at an angle, you know, at 45 degrees or some other angle? Well, you'll notice to the right of polar tracking, there is a little button here, a little arrow, and oh, this isn't polar tracking, it's snap. Over here is polar tracking, and to the right of that polar tracking button, there are a bunch of different angles here. And right now, AutoCAD is set to polar track at 90 degrees, 180, 270, and 360. But if I want 45-degree lines, angles, I can click 45. Now, when I do polar tracking, there it is at 0 degrees, right? Exactly horizontal. And I move my cursor up, there, it's snapped to 45 degrees. So if I want to draw a line that's exactly at 45 degrees, you know, 10 inches long, 1, 0, enter, I now have a line that is exactly 45 degrees. And if I want to go vertically, there it is. I can go 45 in that direction. Horizontal, 45 in this direction. Vertically, 45 and 0. So every 45 degrees, polar tracking will give me a tracking indicator, a tracking line that tells me I am at one of those angles that I have set on polar tracking. Similarly, I can do 30 degrees. So as I come across, there's a 30-degree line. There's 60 degrees, 90, 120. So every 30 degrees, all the way around 360 degrees, all the way around the circle, it will track for me every 30 degrees. I generally, because most of the time we work vertically and horizontally, I generally set my polar tracking to 90 degree angles. So now I'm at 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees. So it's horizontal and vertical, horizontal, vertical. So that is polar tracking. Now, directly to the left of it, you'll see a little L shape with a little right angle symbol on it. And this is ortho mode. Now, if I turn ortho mode on, I'm just going to click on it, and I can turn it on by this button here, or I can turn it using the F8 key. The first thing that you'll notice is that my polar tracking has been turned off. If I turn polar tracking on, ortho is turned off. So it's one or the other. So we talked about polar tracking. I'm gonna go to ortho mode here. I'm gonna turn it on, and then let's draw a line. I'm gonna just use the line tool here, and I'm gonna left click. And now, no matter where I move my cursor, that line is horizontal. I'm moving my cursor all over the place, and AutoCAD isn't cooperating with me. It is only going to draw that line horizontally, and again, horizontally or vertically. So ortho only allows you to draw horizontally and vertically. It is the only thing that you can. I'm stuck. There's nothing else I can do. So this assures me, it absolutely assures me that I am drawing vertical lines or horizontal lines. I use ortho a lot. Everyone uses ortho an awful lot. You can use either. You can use ortho. I'm going to get out of this by just hitting escape or enter. Again, the difference, I can use ortho or I can use polar tracking. Notice the difference is when I go into the line command, I can still draw angled lines if I want to. I can still do that, but AutoCAD helps me if I want to draw that vertical line. It puts that green tracking line there to tell me that I'm drawing absolutely vertically, or I can draw at an angle or absolutely horizontally. So I have a little more flexibility if I want to go off horizontal and vertical with polar tracking, or if I want to just make sure that my lines are horizontal and vertical, I will turn ortho mode on and work that way. And again, there are F keys. If you don't want to be clicking in this area, you can use your F keys. For polar tracking, it's F10, and for ortho, it's F8. So I have polar tracking on here, and I'm going to draw some lines here, and I'm going to draw a line over here, and I decide, you know what, I just want to be in ortho mode. What I can do, the command is active right now. I can come down here and hit ortho, or I can just hit F8. And as soon as I hit F8, you'll notice down here that ortho is on now, it's selected, and now I can only draw vertical and horizontal lines.
I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
It's Julia, by the way. So just to be clear, so if you make a line and let's say you mess up And is the only way to fix it to delete it and redraw the line, or is there a way to
Okay.
adjust the line once it's
No,
removed?
you can adjust the line. There's a lot of ways to do it, and we'll talk about that more. One of the ways you can do it is using grips. If I click on it, I can click on this grip, and you'll notice that AutoCAD is telling me that that line is 7¼ inches long. But as I move the grip up and down, AutoCAD is changing the length of that line. So if I want that line, I want to reduce that line by 1 inch, I'll just type 1. And now that line, if I click on it, let's just use the measure tool here. You'll notice that it was 7¼ and I changed that grip to 6¼ So now that grip is, that line is 6¼ But there are a lot of ways to change the length of a line. You don't have to redraw it in AutoCAD. And we'll talk more about that later.